What's up guys, welcome back for another Yugioh Pro Duel video. The new Bujin Link monster, the last Link monster from Link Vrains Pack 3 was revealed earlier today. It's already up on Yugioh Pro, so let's try it out. It's an okay card. When I first read the effect I was like, ooh, this seems pretty good. But in practice, it was a little bit of a letdown. I'm honest, and as you will see, that it could have been much better. Even though it's quite of a useful effect towards to not only Bujin, since it's quite generic, oriented to rank, well, mainly like rank 4 exceed decks or exceed decks in general, but like rank 4 seems to be the most optimal way. It needs basically like 2 monsters with the same level, so that's quite easy for the Bujins, just looking at 2 level 4 monsters, and upon Link Summon you can target 1 monster in your graveyard at that particular monster's level, let's say in this particular case level 4. You can special summon like another monster from your hand, that is, so a 3rd card here in the whole process with the same level. So basically upgrading to another rank 4 exceed play, since you're forced to go for the exceed play with those 2 monsters you just got back on the field. So it's basically a Bujin incarnation in monster form, but again, it's not focused on, it's not restricted to only Bujins, it's restricted upon like levels, so that's something to keep in mind. I'm looking at Satellars, right, at least that particular deck could also main deck this new Bujin Link monster, but its second effect though is that as soon as you use like an exceed where your Bujin Link is pointing towards to detach something and let's say to search something, or Tornado Dragon or Dweller, using their effects, your Bujin monster will gain the mystical Space Typhoon effect. So as you know, it will basically destroy like 1 spell or trap from your opponent, so that's cool, but let's be honest, and I'm looking at, well, the more popular traps slash back rows in today's format, that's basically like Impermanence, Solemn Strike, like from the top of my head, and again, let's face it, those cards will definitely be activated before, let's say that your Bujin Link will even hit the field, or as soon as you want to summon your Bujin Link, your opponent will strike it or Impermanence it. So basically, it's okay, it's fine to have it there, but in most situations I feel there are just much better plays. But again, it's cool that it's there potentially against like pendulum decks or decks that use field spells or rely on continuous spells. That's where this new Bujin Link could definitely shine, like popping spells and traps during your own turn or during your opponent's turn, with Tornado Dragon popping up to 2 cards, again detaching something so you're able to pop something with your Bujin Link. So in theory that's definitely okay, but in practice, it could have been better. So here I'm investing 3 cards basically. As you saw, I'm not running, what is it called, Arasuda? It's less flexible other than, is it Hirumi, I believe it's named, like banish something from your graveyard to special summon it to the field. I prefer that more. I don't want to like main deck too many cards over 40. But that's how it is, right? I'm also preferring Bujin Crane over Honest. The only, well, like advantage that Honest has is that, well, it's not restricted to only 1 attack, and that's the downside of Crane, is that, okay, in theory again, in 2014 standards, Susano was a fantastic card, again, Master Rule 3, I guess. Well, again, like Susano attacking multiple monsters from the opponent, that was cool, and the format was of course much slower compared to what we have now. And okay, back then it was cool, but now it's just, well, it needs more. So here, searching another copy of Crane, and that's definitely game over. In the earlier duels, earlier test games, I was trying out Unexpected Die as well to search out, let's say, the normal Bujin monster, but again, in the long run, I felt that it wasn't really worth it. Okay, you could make this first turn play of going for your Link monster, immediately going for the exceed play, and again depending on the matchup, but because you're playing Bujin, I feel that Susano is basically your to-go to exceed, detach something to, I guess, search something or send something from your deck to the graveyard, the Foolish Burial effect, and that's basically it. And the problem is of your Bujin Link is that for some whatever reason, I guess Konami somewhat justifying this okay effect. I mean, it's not like the best or fantastic effect, so I don't think it was needed to give your opponent the extra monster zone, and that's also one of the extra downsides that this card has, is the one of the link markers pointing upwards, so basically giving your opponent the extra monster zone, and that's something I definitely don't like about this new Link monster. So it's okay as a follow-up play, but it's its plays or its advantage plays are quite restricted, and I'm looking at, let's say, its spell and trap destruction effect. That could be cool, but yeah, other than that, I don't feel, you know, it's not really the Bujin boss monster from the extra deck that you really want to get on the field as soon as possible. And as what I mentioned before, is that I eventually like dropped the unexpected die as well. Rescue Rabbit also doesn't seem that great. Again, you need, or at least you're forced, or you want to have at least one Bujin monster in your graveyard to reborn, so that during your first turn it's not useful. And it of course will be much more useful during the later turns. But yeah, again, in 2014 standards when Bujins were relevant, that was good, but now it's, well, the format is much faster and there's much more interruption, like hand traps, impermanence, and so on. And not to forget, like going second is where the problem also lies, and again, you're forced, or you have to battle it out against multiple negations from the opponent, and that's where the deck definitely struggles. So this works out fine, but I'm still looking towards like Bujin's main necking floodgates, or potential floodgates that Bujins could main neck. I tried out there can only be one, but I'm not too happy about that. In theory it sounded much better than in practice. Other floodgates, I mean, the two most important floodgates that Bujins were able to use or could use are both banned. I'm looking at Kaiser Colosseum and Vanity's Emptiness, and sadly for Bujins those cards aren't allowed anymore, but well, I don't feel like there are any good like floodgates that, you know, like don't hinder Bujins that much, or like Bujins can get advantage out of that. Thunder is definitely its worst matchup, prevents searches, and let's not forget Susano, even though it can attack all monsters from your opponent with Honest and or Crane. Well yeah, Crane one attack I guess, but with Honest, the permanent boost during that particular battle phase, it's cool, but against the Colossus that feels quite useless. So anyway, ABCs, Bujins definitely want to go first, and as you saw in like the side deck, there are a lot of options that you might want to main deck as well, and just maybe go second, I guess, with like stuff like Nibiru, evenly matched, and maybe to some extent Dark Ruler no more, but I'm mainly looking at cards like Nibiru and evenly matched, that, well, basically because you're not running like at least like a tier 2 or tier 3 deck maybe, I'm looking at Bujins, is just go second and rely on those OP/broken cards like Nibiru, like evenly matched, make your opponent minus themselves if you're able to draw them during your opponent, at least during your opening 5, and then it's quite okay. But again, yeah, that's the other side of your story, is that, well, Bujins is a deck that definitely wants to go first. So it's again like a small dilemma with the deck here. It all works out fine again, as I mentioned before. I mean, your opponent having like multiple sets, and that's where, okay, I could go for the Link monster, but, well, again, the Link monster doesn't have any protection form. Your opponent is still able to, let's say, strike it, or maybe impermanence it, and everyone is main-necking impermanence to just flat out negate the Bujin's Link monster's effect of special summoning something from your hand and graveyard for the potential rank 4 exceed play after that. So, again, in theory, it sounded much better than in practice. So this should be game, if I'm not mistaken, more than enough damage again to attack for a game. So I guess it's cool, but, well, as I mentioned before, the card still has so many downsides, and the fact that your opponent is getting the extra monster zone is something I heavily dislike. The impermanence here is cool, prevents the opponent from, you know, like getting the extra special summons, I guess, and already forcing out the mass change, so Darklaw is definitely a huge threat here for this deck, but Diane is going to get destroyed by the Crane as well, and this is cool. I'm only taking, I think, 1 or 2 Mikazuchi, the guy that searches out Bujin Carnation. Again, Bujin Carnation is this deck's power card, a comeback card, but I feel that it's quite risky to main deck 3, since again you are able to search it off of Mikazuchi, but again the small downside with some investment. So again that's like the, again, like a small dilemma I have with the deck. Maxing out Bujin Carnation, that is, and you know how many copies of Mikazuchi, 1, 2, I don't feel the need to main deck 3. So again, this was cool. I mean, going for your Link monster, potentially threatening your opponent's back row, but the attack stat is just too low to justify that play. And okay, you can follow it up with Susano play, potentially attacking all monsters from your opponent, and also search out, let's say, Yamato, Crane, or whatever, or Hare for some extra protection. But here in this case, it kind of backfired, and that's something that I felt like with playtesting as well. Like going into your Link 2, most of the time felt like a bit underwhelming. Again, giving your opponent the extra monster zone, the investment that it could have been much better. Let's say if you invest 2 level 4 Bujins on the field, make your Link 2, and then potentially reborn the same monsters you just used for your Link 2. That would have been fantastic. And then, you know, just focus or restrict the effect to only Bujin monsters. That would have been much better, since now you're forced, or you're kind of forced to have that third monster, Bujin monster, in your hand for the follow-up play. And that's something that in most situations doesn't feel too optimal. And basically, well, in most situations, again, it's just better to go for Susano, the rank 4 Exceed play, and go from there. But that's how it is. Again, like always, feel free to leave feedback about this new card. Okay, guys, that's it. Thanks for watching, and feel free to leave a comment or like if you enjoyed the video. Lithium signing out. Peace.